All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. So we had the Robert F. Kennedy hearings, confirmation hearings yesterday going in
Well,
for HS.
first part.
I see. Right. I see Fish and Golf has first blood this morning, and we're going to talk a little Bible this morning. This was Cameron's idea. I think it was pretty well considered. So I'm bringing in my two biblical scholars here, and when I say biblical scholars, I have read the Bible, but I have not spent a great deal of time studying the Bible. I can't quote you scripture and verse with a very, very few exceptions. References to Boondock Saints and the like. Boondock Saints, Pulp Fiction. Yeah, I got those scriptures. I got those references. I know a little something about Psalms 137. Sure, why not? But I got a Catholic and a Protestant here who we're gonna talk about redemption arcs because it's RFK. And like I've said before, he used to be a Democrat. And not to belabor the point, but he was a Democrat much more recently than almost any of the other Democrat converts that we've discussed in the past. Right? So, ain't no zealot like a convert, sure. Now, RFK, there's some problems with RFK, not least of which is his previous pro-choice positions, which I don't think that he's eschewed, but that's not what we're hiring him for. So,
are we suggesting that Democrats are Pharisees?
I would have just gone with feral sociopaths, but the two phrases are conveniently phonetically similar.
Right. Okay. So, I don't actually.
Cameron's in professor mode. He's got the glasses on. Loving it.
Well,
yeah, sit up a little bit so I can see the bow tie.
I thought about it, but it wouldn't go with the cap. Or maybe it would. Who knows?
Maybe it would. It would do my wife's heart good if you were wearing bow ties while you were working now.
It's gonna take
derailment. Let's set it up, boy. Set it up.
It's gonna take more than just one election for white men to wear bow ties again. Okay, that's going to be a cultural transformation. Black people have in fact appropriated the bow tie, and we have to fight to get it back. So,
listen. I don't know if it's a compliment or an insult there, Pat, but okay.
You figured wrong, Patrick. It's the opposite.
Listen, man. I am no stranger to a bow tie. You see, Chris is making reference to the fact that Fee has occasionally made me bow ties over the years that I have appreciated very much. So, Anyhow, okay. So, we're not even in the full confirmation hearings yet. This was just like Senate committee. Okay, and it does, just being realistic, this is going to be a Pete Hegseth kind of a deal. RFK is likely to get dragged across the finish line here if it even happens, because of course Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are the rumor is, yes, the ladybug. Yeah, that's right. They're currently the biggest holdouts on the Republican side.
The problem with Mitch McConnell, the real problem with Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, unlike people like Murkowski and them, there are still Republicans that believe that these men are legitimate conservatives, right? There's nobody out there that legitimately believes that Murkowski is a conservative Republican, even though she runs on that ticket. But there are people who legitimately believe that Graham and McConnell are on our side. And like I said, the only redeeming quality of McConnell, for example, is the and granted, it's a big one, but blocking Merrick Garland from the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's enough to redeem a man for a lifetime of inadequacy and failure.
No. These are the type of Republicans who they're good for a judicial appointment or a tax cut. That's all you're going to get from them. That's it. Don't expect them to push the needle in anything in the social realm, all right? And don't expect any kind of dramatic legislation from them. That's not what they're there for.
Oh no! Every year, Lindsey Graham introduces the national ban on abortion just so it can go down in flames and create another wedge between the voting population. He's good for that.
He's good at during election years. Yes, he's good for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All that being said, I'm just gonna come right out with it. I even now, though I'm coming around, don't really like RFK Jr. And it's not the heroin thing. It's not the running around on his wife thing. That just means he fits in Washington D.C. Frankly,
it's not the dead bear or the whale or the voice.
So he's a Kennedy.
Well,
that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit the voice. Like, woo, buddy, that's it is exhausting to listen to the man.
Would you rather listen to him for an hour or Kamala? It's a tough call.
You're right. That's a tough call.
Yeah, it is a tough one.
Tough call.
That's a tough call. But no, it is. It is, for example, the fact that he's said that the NRA is basically a terrorist organization. It's the fact that he believes in abortion up through the 9th month and has said so pretty recently. And, if we're going to track the arc of RFK Jr. and why he's relevant in this political cycle, he tried to primary Joe Biden, which, by the way, Democrats, you sorry you didn't let him do it yet?
Yeah.
And then tried to run it as an independent and basically got locked out of the process at every turn. And Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, was like, hey, man, you want a piece of the action? I've got a spot open for you. So this is how we arrived at this point. Now, as I was thinking about this, as I was listening to the Senate confirmation hearings, which I think RFK actually did a pretty good job at for the most part.
He did.
The people that saying he had a terrible performance, I mean, he had a couple of stumbles. There were some contentious moments, but he literally spent hours having people attack him. I dare say any of us would have, we'd be proud to perform on parity with where he did, given those circumstances.
Agreed.
Well, and let's be, like you said, this is the first one. This is the, this is the committee hearing. What this really was it was the first shot across the bow by the big pharmaceutical companies, donation recipients. This was an attack on Donald Trump through RFK by big pharma, and their chosen weapons were Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, etc.
Do you support the onesie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen.
Will you commit to make this company stop selling this onesie? I don't have anything to do with that company anymore. I have no power there. Oh, you founded the company years and years ago. I'm not involved with I'm divested from it. I'm not there.
Yeah. Look. Okay. And I promise, guys, like Mario and I are not about to drag this too far off, but there is a point that I think is important. And we're actually going to look at clips and react to clips. Don't panic. Chris is actually going to be a good show host. But Chris is going to attempt to be a good show host. Maybe this is as good as it gets right here. Who knows? So anyhow, as I was thinking about this, we've got an internal chat. We refer to it as the infamous thread. And I made the point that, the Bible is actually full of disreputable characters who, when God called on them, decided to do the right thing and are now regarded as heroic figures in the Bible. we think of the nation of Israel, we think of God's chosen people as Israelites. Um, well, that all comes from a guy named Jacob, and you got to understand Jacob. The etymology of the name from that time period loosely translates to deceiver. And buddy, Jacob was a deceiver, like tricked his brother, who was basically a bigger badass than any of us could ever hope to be. Um, Tricked his brother out of his portion of the inheritance and then went to his father, who was like blind, and double tricked his father into making sure that his brother got tricked out of his portion of the inheritance. Goes through this whole that like really does kind of all these slimy things, and then other family members do slimy things to him. um he ends up basically running away from home, and it gets into a wrestling match with an angel who the scripture, the sort of the subtext is this is not just an angel, it's the literal avatar of God. And so Jacob is literally fighting against God. It's where the whole Jacob's ladder thing comes from. um and he has some kind of permanent hip injury that comes out of this. And finally, the angel asked Jacob, so look, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And Jacob's like, hey man, I just want to bless it. Which of course, he's been trying to get his entire life, blessings that he didn't earn. And the angel says,
which means inheritance and property rights and everything associated with it.
Yes, exactly. And so the angel tells him, say, hey, well, why didn't you just ask? Why'd you have to fight? Why'd you have to hurt yourself? Why'd you have to go through all this?
Why did you have to be the Jewiest Jew of all time and rip off your entire family?
Mario, stop it. Stop it.
No, that's how Jacob is described, right? Like the schemiest, the sleaziest, most schemingest, okay? Just hand-rubbing Jew of all time.
The views of Mario do not necessarily reflect the views of the Brushfire Mind at large.
He came around. Don't worry. You'll get there. He came.
Yes. However, everything that I'm talking about now, everything that I'm talking about now, biblical scholars are aware of, and people that were churched in the way that Mario and I were churched are aware of. But most of you, what you know Jacob for is that his name was changed to Israel, and he had 12 sons that became the 12 tribes of Israel. So the guy went from a total dirtbag to founding a nation. And why? Well, because when it came time for him to recognize that he was in a holy place and could be given a holy mission, he was prepared for it by whatever means. Maybe he needed to actually be a dirtbag his entire life to understand the opportunity that was being presented to him. But his name was literally changed to Israel, and he is redeemed. And the Bible is full of many such examples. Like we think of Abraham, who basically was a loser. Like he was the equivalent of the guy that's 40 years old, still in the basement eating Cheetos, playing World of Warcraft. And God comes along and it's like, dude, it's time to finish growing up. Like if you want kids of your own, you need to stop being one. So the Bible is just chock full of stories of dudes who were bad dudes. And yet when the moment was right, they were the person that was God's chosen instrument. And the comparison that I'm drawing here is that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff about RFK that I don't like, that I'm probably never going to like. However, he could be the correct instrument. He could be exactly what we need, because the mission that he has been given by Donald Trump, he's not incorrect. America is getting fatter. America is becoming more unhealthy. We are having just all of these things that don't really like. The three of us are old enough to remember when like fat kids were rare. Fat kids got made fun of because they were rare. Most kids were not, and yet now just pull up any random elementary school on Facebook and look at the pictures that they post, and a significant portion of those children are going to be overweight. So
I mean,
what we have,
I'd almost go so far as to say that childhood obesity is child abuse, and parents need counseling.
Well, and like, the time that Cameron's talking about when we were younger, yesterday we talked about the rapper chick that's suing Lyft because she's too fat to get in cars, right? Those people existed before in 80s and 90s. They it was a thing that could happen, but it's something you see all the time now. You see those people pop up, and they'll be on the cover of frickin' magazines. Oh, it's a plus size fashion model. It wasn't all that long ago that you saw those people on the cover of the National Enquirer, and you weren't sure if it was a doctored image or not.
Well, look, that bitch ain't plus size. That bitch is like plus P plus sized. Okay, like that's plus. Plus size is when you're still within like 10 to 15% of your target BMI.
Correct. She would ruin your bargain basement midnight 38 special.
Right.
Yeah, I remember back in the 80s, someone like that, like they were an oddity. You know what I mean? It was not like not quite circus freak here, but just an oddity, a human interest story, like the guy who gets pushed around in a wheelbarrow. And it's like, I wash myself with a rag on a stick.
Mario sounded like Sling Blade for a second there.
Sorry, I made myself laugh, but no one else thought it was funny.
Biscuits with mustard.
Ain't got the gas in it. So, anyhow, look,
you might want to send a Hearst for this one.
Look, and I'm not even about to suggest that suddenly there is this divine mandate that RFK Jr. is, chosen by God or whatever. However, I'll just note this could extend to other people. Like Pete Hegseth came back from war and did totally drink too much and screw everything in sight. Like I think it's pretty clear that happened. And of course,
because that's a story you don't hear every day.
and of course, Donald Trump himself. Okay,
just look at the businesses on the street outside the main gate in Fort Bragg, Fayetteville. Like, nah, no.
And look, and Donald Trump himself. Okay, has some pretty deep character flaws. But if he did not have the character flaws that he had, would he have the character strengths that he has? Would he be the type of guy that is completely out of fucks to give? And you want to talk about divine mandates. And again, I'm not going to make this assertion, but I think it's allowed to be there. Boy, that bullet came awful close, guys. It came awfully close. Like, woo.
Yeah,
so
that bullet.
that bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is RFK the guy I would have picked? No. But is RFK the right man for the job? Well, actually, maybe. In all seriousness, maybe, decades of hedonism led him to a point of recognizing exactly what needs to be done in order to peel back some of this stuff. So anyhow, like that's my setting the table. Like before we judge and we say, oh, and what a piece of shit. Well, in some ways, Donald Trump is a piece of shit, and he's about to be the greatest president in our lifetime. Hell, he's already been the greatest president in our lifetime, and he's only been in office for like 9 days. So there you go. There's your contemporary biblical lesson by Professor Anderson. So say we all.
Yeah. One thing I wish, before I get into my segment, what I wish someone would ask RFK, or I would like some explanation for, was that very odd, mysterious event that occurred with him back in the 90s. Apparently, he was at a beach in Massachusetts, and there was a beached whale, right? And instead of pushing it back in the water or whatever, RFK decided to take a chainsaw and cut the whale's head off, and then he strapped the whale's head to the hood of his car with his family, with children with him,
Yeah.
and went riding down the highway with a whale's head down to his car. Just if you could briefly, Mr. RFK, could briefly take 5 minutes and explain this to me. Based?
I mean, not the least of which is like I keep a survival kit in my car. A chainsaw is not part of that survival kit. Like what? Like,
Actually, in fairness, I've been giving a lot of thought lately to whether or not I should buy a second chainsaw and keep it in the truck, precisely because, like, I've talked about it a little bit before with the Helene stuff. We got a tree down across the road out here. DOT ain't gonna be here today, or tomorrow, or ever. So if there doesn't happen to be some redneck with a chainsaw in the line, then that tree's going to stay there until one shows up, because the government ain't coming. So I might just have to be the redneck with a chainsaw from time to time.
right.
So, and also the
Now,
chainsaw.
that said, I don't know what the condition of the whale was when he found it.
It was already dead. It was already dead.
That now, with it being already dead, I don't know. That may be a taxidermy opportunity that one just cannot pass up.
Imagine the smell. Anyway, chainsaw also has the same psychological effect of a shotgun racking. That just the sound of it is a deterrent. Okay, anyone who wants to mess with you. All right, so
Indeed. So
another major biblical figure, in fact, probably the most important, other than Jesus Christ, most important biblical figure in the New Testament would be St. Paul the Apostle. He was born Saul of Tarsus, okay, or Shaul. All right, so Shaul of Tarsus, right, was born in 1 AD, the same year as Christ, all right, except he took a very different path. Now, Tarsus is a city. It's a major commercial city in southern Turkey. All right, houses one of the great universities of the ancient world. All right, and was a major trade hub for Roman, Greek, and Middle Eastern trade. Saul was born to an aristocratic Jewish family of the tribe of Benjamin. All right, so he was basically Jewish blue blood, if you will. And like most scions of a tribe, all right, he would go on to become a rabbi. Rabbi was the preferred career path for him. So he was went from Tarsus in southern Turkey to Jerusalem, where he underwent rabbinical training. All right, now their particular brand of Judaism was Pharisaic Judaism. Okay, which was the study of Judaism that the Pharisees, okay, were descended from the people who escaped from the Babylonian exile, okay, the ones who returned to the Levant, all right, after Nebuchadnezzar, released the Jews, released the Israelites. Some of them went up into Asia Minor, okay, but many of them returned to the Levant, to the Holy Land. So their brand of Judaism was very kind of rule-oriented and very Talmudic, okay? In fact, an over-reliance on the Talmud, okay, as opposed to the Torah. The Talmud being a collection of basically rabbinical studies over the course of like 1,000 years, where it's all about how to pull and parse and extract meaning in ways that weren't originally intended in the scripture. It's a way of basically legalizing the Torah, and creating basically creating like a way to trick God, if you will, to trick God, right? Um, this is Talmudic Judaism, or Pharisaic Judaism. So very popular amongst the middle class of the Jews, all right, at the time of Christ, because it was a way of basically social mobility, right? We can use the law against the law to advance ourselves, advance our position. Now, after completing his rabbinical studies in Jerusalem, he returned to Tarsus and immediately became a rabbi of a local synagogue there. It was just, and he did that for 2 years. He's in his early 30s. Okay, Jesus had just been crucified, and then a year later, he gets the call that he is going to be part of. He's been elected to the Sanhedrin Council. So this is the big muckety mucks, okay, in Jerusalem. All right, the ones who essentially control the Jewish faith. Think of it like the Supreme Court, the Supreme Council, okay, of Judaism. So any kind of decree or decision they make has, has authority throughout all of Judaism. Okay, and Judaism at the time wasn't just concentrated in Israel; it was spread out across Asia Minor, Greece, North Africa. Okay, and to some extent in Italy as well. And they had merchant trade networks going from basically from Baghdad to Spain. Okay, so significant influence, significant trade routes, and Judaism. It wasn't, like I said, it was broader, okay, broader spread out geographically than it is today in the Middle East. So he elected to the Sanhedrin, okay, which is basically the highest level you could get. All right, and when he returns to Jerusalem, the Jerusalem that he studied in to become a rabbi was very different Jerusalem than the Jerusalem he returned to. All right, as you know, as Jesus had just been crucified, and there were a large number of cultists, is what they would have been called at the time, who were professing their faith in what was known as the Way. This is pre-Christianity. All right, Christianity was called the Way. All right, and it was basically adherence to the Lord Jesus Christ. That he was the Son of God and born of the Virgin Mary. Now, he led the charge to persecute this Christian cult, all right, to end the way. Considered it blasphemy, absolutely heretical, absolutely haram, all right. So they passed legislation to essentially ban Christianity throughout all of Judaism, and being caught or captured as a Christian, being exposed as a Christian leader would most certainly result in persecution, imprisonment, or up to death. Um, Saul's most infamous moment as a member of the Sanhedrin was when the henchmen, or the Jewish police, basically apprehended a man named what was it, Stephen. Okay, Stephen, who is known in Catholicism as Saint Stephen the Martyr. All right, he was an early Christian leader. Was captured by the Jewish police and brought before the Sanhedrin. And in his testimony, in testimony of Stephen, Saul became so enraged that he actually just picked up a rock and started bludgeoning him to death. Okay, so he murdered a man. He murdered a man through stoning for for blaspheming Yahweh in the holiest of holies in the high temple. Um, Now, after that, the legislation was passed banning Christianity throughout all of Judaism, and remember, this is ancient times, so it's not like you can call someone. There's no telegram. There's nothing. Any kind of information had to be brought to and fro on horseback. All right. So he heads to Damascus in present day Syria, of course, and this is basically to spread the message that Christianity is now illegal. All right, and to, of course, do a little bit of a inquisitioning, if you will, to the local communities there and try to root out the Christians. Now, on his way to Damascus, and this is where we get that cliche, the road to Damascus, right, as an expression for someone who undergoes a fundamental change. On the way to Damascus, he is struck blind by the Holy Spirit, And Jesus tells him, like, why are you persecuting me? Why are you persecuting my people? You will get up and you will go to Damascus and you will wait there until I tell you to do. Being directly instructed by God, and blinded. Now, he was blind for 3 days, and during these 3 days of darkness, all right, all he could see in his head, in his internal monologue, was just a constant replay of his worst sins or the most shameful moments of his life. So just a replay of the worst of Saul, and it was driving him mad with grief. And he was realized, like, I am not in the path of the Lord. My entire life, to this point, I'm in my mid 30s. My entire point in life was to serve God, to be a rabbi, to be a leader of the people, and I have been wrong my entire life. It's like a soul searching moment for him. Now, what happens in Damascus is the Lord speaks to a Christian follower named Ananias. All right, he's a prominent Christian in the Damascus, in the growing, burgeoning Christian community in Damascus, and he's told to go and see Saul. Now, at first, Ananias is terrified. Like, he's like, "What are you talking about? You want me to walk right into the clutches of the man who's here to basically stone me to death?" The Lord tells him, "Just do it. Trust me. Do what I say."
Trust me, bro.
Just exactly. So Ananias goes to Saul, and laying his hands on his face, it is said that, like, it's like shingles fell off of Saul's eyes, and he could see again. And from that moment on, like Chris likes to say, there's no believer like a
There's no
convert.
zealot
Right?
like a convert.
Yeah, there's no zealot like a convert, right? Well, and that's when Saul becomes basically the greatest apostle in the New Testament. All right, largely responsible for spreading Christianity throughout all of Asia Minor and Greece. He would be credited with converting the Greeks, and for laying the foundation for Christianity in Rome itself. While he was in Cyprus spreading the ministry, he realized that he would be more effective in spreading God's word if he got rid of his silly regional Jewish name and adopted the Greek name of Paul. Okay, Paulo, and that's when he became Saint Paul the Apostle to the Gentiles. Very instrumental in spreading Christianity in the early days of the church and establishing doctrine. There's a reason why Christians don't have to get circumcised according to Mosaic law, is because of Paul. And in the end, he became a martyr himself. He was killed by Nero, the terrible. Well, not terrible. What would you call Nero? Is that
Terrible's a good word.
It's a terrible Roman Emperor Nero. He was executed by him along with a variety of his Christian cohort. So that's the story of Paul. Basically, one of the great persecutors of Christians. Okay, went on to become its greatest advocate and greatest propagator. Okay, throughout the ancient world. So that's Saint Paul.
And that's y'all. I tell you what. One of the reasons we keep Mario around is he doesn't have to prepare stuff like, a total lecture like that. It just kind of falls out of his face. Throw a topic at him. It's amazing to watch. I've seen men crumble beneath it.
Yeah, I'm glad I told my story first. I don't know how I could compete with that. I was willing to just hit the broad strokes, but
But back on the topic of the redemption arc for old RFK.
My entire education was at Catholic schools, like from kindergarten to all through high school. So
clearly,
yeah, it seems to have worked out for you. But yeah, so RFK's road to Damascus.
Yeah, I know.
Like Cameron mentioned earlier, he tried to primary Joe Biden, and was faced with having to ask himself the question: Wow, I've been made the enemy here. Am I the asshole? Have I been wrong my whole life? And some part of it meant to say, I have. I've been wrong for my entire life because I was a Democrat.
Are we the baddies?
and yes, you are, right? Democrat. That's You're a eugenicist. That's what you are.
I'm going to get some coffee. I'm listening, so just continue.
That's okay. We could. So we're back around. So basically, point being, yeah. So basically, point being, and like I said, this all sparked from the fact that I'm not an RFK fan. I'm just not. However, maybe the scales fell from his eyes.
My Uncle Steve is in the chat here. He keeps typing in all caps. It's like I gave my phone. It's like I handed my phone to my damn cat.
He's just being emphatic. But the scales have fallen from his eyes, and he's being given an opportunity to put his skills to work, and in that frame. I never thought that I'd be on the same side as a dynastic Kennedy, and yet,
right,
this is the timeline we live in. Like I'm on. I can't believe I'm going to say it. I'm on RFK's side. Here we go. Let's.
At least for this position.
Yes, I'm not saying I want him to head the ATF.
Exact position under these exact circumstances. He is possibly the rightest man for the job.
Yeah, Dirty Dozen. Like that's
RFK said it himself. His vision of making America healthy again, he doesn't view it as a partisan issue. Okay, he views it as a national issue, as an issue of national security. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He said that there are no.
I'm pretty comfortable with that. We remember the three of us. We remember what school lunches were like when we were suffering and struggling through that particular system of child abuse. The just absolute garbage that we were fed in the school lunches, which, by the way, were subsidized through taxpayer dollars, and we still had to pay money for, which is just always, they oppose free school lunches. No, hold on a minute. How's about if they're going to be free school lunches, why doesn't everybody get one? Right. So, you got that. And then, of course, you had Michelle Obama made it her big bugaboo to improve nutrition in the schools. And she came in and somehow made that food worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not nutritious if the kids won't eat it. Doesn't matter how healthy it is.
It's not nutritious if the vegetable has been boiled to the point where it's literally just a pile of cellulose with
right
with no color or flavor in it at all.
See, we make sure my kids eat good. We homeschool, and my boy loves him a nearly raw game heart. There are a few things in this world that give me that warm and fuzzy more than watching my 9-year-old boy just eat a heart.
So to actually bring it to the confirmation, I'm going to piggyback off something you said. I'm going to quote RFK, and this is going to be a brilliant segue. Look at this. RFK actually said that there are no Democrat or Republican children. They're our kids. And if there's anything that really spoke to me, like as a father on a deep level, he's correct. He's absolutely correct. They're our kids. And I'll go ahead and add to his statement and say, and we should do better by them. So yeah. So anyhow, there you go. Now, guys, are we good? Can we actually go into the reacting to the clips portion?
One thing I want to say one thing in support of school lunches. All right. If I could get a hand, the square pizza. I want a piece of the square pizza. That's the only thing I remember.
God, you guys are all so weird. That shit was nasty.
No, not if you got the corner piece.
No.
Cafeteria, school cafeteria, square pizza. Okay, slightly burned and served to you by an obese black woman.
Look,
that is a culinary experience.
I've literally heard this almost my entire life.
It's not a positive culinary experience.
Okay, fair enough.
The statement, it is a culinary experience. That's like Jordan Peterson telling the story of, I was doing acid one time in a Zodiac raft out on the open ocean, and a whale shark came up, and somebody asked me, well, was it fun? I was like, well, I don't know if it was fun, but it wasn't boring. So let's watch some clips from the hearing.
Just want to add some money. And yet the organization is making money selling a child's product to parents.
And these are some of the top donation recipients of Big Pharma for the last election. In fact, as it turns out, over the until 2020, Republicans were by and large the highest recipients of Big Pharma dollars. And
what happened in 2020?
Oh, what do you know? I don't know if you guys remember this, but think back to early 2020 when Trump first introduced Operation Lightspeed, and it sounded like a great idea. And all things considered, with the information available at the time, it was a great idea because assuming, and remember, I'm saying based on the information available at the time, where the majority of Americans generally were still believed that we were talking about catching, turtle cooties and bad AIDS from gutter oil, from people eating bat soup, and there was no such thing as the Wuhan lab there wasn't even a lab there for there to be a leak from, et cetera, et cetera. These are the things that most Americans believed, and everybody believed. The way they understood the disease was that everybody's going to catch it and the majority of you are going to die. And now, of course, by the middle of 2020, we had a pretty good grasp on, hold on a minute. Hold on. You're almost 100% guaranteed to survive this disease unless you have like at least 4 comorbidities and are older than the age of expected life expectancy. But before that went from tinfoil hat land to white paper fact, the idea that we need to get a solution, we need to get a drug, a vaccine available, a cure for this disease now was actually a pretty reasonable position at the time. And that's assuming that you had not yet taken enough red and or black pills to understand that no, anytime you give the government any authority whatsoever, which is, by the way, giving options to Big Pharma is the same thing, you're taking a risk of introducing graft and fraud, which is what happened, which is why we ended up with so many cases of severe vaccine injury or death, and the vaccine itself has proved now to be dramatically less efficacious than originally reported.
Well, that's the problem with the vaccine. Like it doesn't actually vaccinate you. Like that's correct. That was like the original big lie. If you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID. Well,
and it fills your bloodstream with what's effectively like shrapnel. All right, that gets embedded in your organs. Yeah.
Right.
None of us. I'll put it this way: none of us regret not taking it.
I don't like, and I was gonna, and then everybody started acting squirrely about it, and I went, maybe I'm not.
And remember, all through the beginning and really right up until the election, you had Democrats screaming, I'll never take a drug that Donald Trump endorsed. I won't take that Trump vaccine. It's evil. It's from Trump. And then the emergency use policy was approved on all the variations of the vaccine from Pfizer and everybody else about 3 days after the election. They did some final test the day after the 2020 election that proved that drug could be trusted. That's what happened. There's no way that a bunch of politically motivated hacks decided to, hold that in reserve in order to attempt to manipulate the election outcome, because you can bet if the vaccine was approved and made available in the weeks before the 2020 election, that would have changed the tide entirely.
And you mean sort of like Hunter's laptop?
Sort of like. But another thing happened in 2020. Surprise, surprise. The pharmaceutical companies flipped from funding Republicans to funding Democrats. Now, they didn't completely quit funding Republicans.
They always play both sides. They're the number one lobbying group other than Israel. Okay, like for our Congress.
But yeah, the analysis reinforces what we've known for some time. Big Pharma has long used its excessive profits to peddle influence with both parties in Washington. But Democrats are the only party that has taken bold action to fight drug makers' greed and lower drug prices. That's just a lie, right? So you've got that lie coming out of the press. Let me remind you another big lie that was a part of that whole narrative. We heard over and over again throughout the campaign and the like that Joe Biden had taken measures to cap insulin costs at $35 a month. Well, that's not what happened. What happened is Donald Trump did that. Then Biden used an executive order to undo that, let it float for a couple of months, and then made it part of the infrastructure of the what was it? The counter-inflation bill.
Yeah, cut border crossings in half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally everything positive that can be said about Biden begins with Donald Trump did it first, and then I figured out a way to take credit for it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of those things read a hell of a lot like the Afghan withdrawal. Donald Trump got it set up, and then I came in and ruined it so that I could take credit for saying that it was a good thing.
Yeah. I broke it, but I fixed it.
Yeah.
So, what would you what are the priorities here for RFK? One is, the childhood obesity epidemic. This is due to toxins in the food and water supply that are resulting in hormonal disruption. Okay, endocrine system disruption within children. Okay.
Hey, that reminds me, Mario. Toxins in the water supply. You owe me a testing kit.
I do. Yeah, friend. All right. Anyway, so toxins in the food and water supply, okay, largely responsible for hormonal imbalances, probably responsible for trans kids as well, if you want to know the truth. That is
the freaking frog's gay.
Precisely. Atrazine. That is, and that's real. Okay, that would be the number one priority because we're how many generations, how many lost generations can America afford? Like how many of
I don't know, but
how many have we already had? Like we can't.
I don't know, but as soon as this show's over, I'm going to go get a large pickle jar and put a bunch of change in it and just write Alex Jones was right on the side of it. Put that in the set dressing.
Yeah, for sure. But that and I would like to see justice. I would like to see justice served for the entire 2020-2021 vaccine scandal, where they knew they weren't safe, and they pushed it on you anyway, and they mandated it for you. Okay, I'm glad I lived in Florida at the time. Governor DeSantis, I will always have respect for that man for protecting us. All right, in Florida, from the mandates, but I knew I wasn't taking that shit the moment it debuted, because I don't trust the government. And I don't trust multinational pharmaceutical corporations. So I sure as hell don't trust the fusion of government and multinational pharmaceutical corporations. You can forget it. I ain't taking it. I don't care about the science. I ain't taking it because I don't trust you. Because I lived through 2020 and I saw everything that happened. No.
Yeah, it turned a whole generation of guys in their late 30s and early 40s, basically us.
For anyone even
confidence that they
for anyone even remotely aware, okay, even remotely capable of critical thinking, 2020 was the death of institutional trust. Okay.
Oh God.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that was, and yeah, exactly. Chris, I'm just
I was
in
about
our
to ask, do you want to start with that clip?
yeah, I bumped my favorite. This is my favorite clip from the RFK hearings yesterday, because it's not just sometimes your mentality, and anybody that's worked in commission sales knows this. You give me somebody with the right attitude, and I will turn them into a competent salesperson.
Oh yeah.
The
Hell yeah.
knowledge is far less important than the attitude that you bring with it. And the attitude that RFK Jr. brings right here is just, I mean, chef's kiss. As far as I'm concerned, this was his absolute strongest moment.
And real quick, that attitude, the difference between a struggling salesman and a competent and successful one. A struggling salesman thinks that he's selling a product. A successful salesman believes that he has a solution to a genuine problem that people have. And what he's doing is not out there trying to make a buck. He's being compensated for going around and going out of his way to help people who need him to do it.
Yeah, you need a new car. I'm just helping you buy it.
Right.
Will you pledge that you will not fire federal employees who work on food safety?
Is that coming through real quiet?
No, it's all right.
Okay.
I think
work
we're
on
good.
trying to preventing things like salmonella.
Senator, there's 91,000 employees.
So that I take that as that's a simple yes. And I'm going to take that as a no.
Run that
I take that as a no.
rid of
Will you actually? We talked about protecting Americans from cyber criminals. Something we need to do a lot more on. Will you commit not to fire anyone in the health arena who currently works on protecting Americans from cyber attacks in their healthcare files?
I will commit to not firing anybody who's doing their job.
That's the correct answer.
Good answer.
Because what Mark Warner, what this shit lib dim is trying to do is he's trying to bully RFK into saying, I will not go in there and clean house. He wants him to say, I will not do my job. I won't fire people for things like being generally incompetent, being a general drain on the taxpayer dollar, or, and this is what Senator Warner's really looking for, I won't go in there and fire people for being sociopathic ideologues, right? A big part of a big repeated theme throughout the whole hearing was, will you commit to retaining the sociopathic ideologues that we have worked so hard to place throughout government? And Kennedy said, no, I won't. I won't promise you that I'll keep your blue-haired sociopaths around. I won't promise you that I won't sue pharmaceutical companies. I will not commit to weaponizing to the continued weaponization of health and human services against the liberty and prosperity of the American people. I won't do it.
Well,
Which,
RFK was
from a only recently reformed Democrat is deeply refreshing.
Well, RFK was actually about to make an excellent point, and the senator recognized it and stepped all over him on purpose. He was about to say, there are over 90,000 people associated with this. How could you expect me to do my job if I can't let some of those people go? And just let that roll around in your brain that there's almost 100,000 folks that make money from basically getting to dictate what you must do with your body. So saith the federal government, and I dare you to argue with me. And all RFK is saying is like, hey, look, you show me 90,000 people, I promise I can find a few hundred of them that need to go. Like, it won't even be hard.
And the whole pro-choice movement, the whole pro-choice argument, my body, my choice. We were talking about 2020 being the death of institutional trust. 2021, Joe Biden comes in office. You got the mandates all over the place. You get shit-heel Dems senators like this. Hey, we want you to keep these 90,000 employees around that are going to mandate how people live their lives, their They're gonna make it so that food and drug companies can continue to lie to their consumers.
They're going to mandate that you have to wear a mask standing up, but you could take it off when you sit down.
Right. And these are the things that the My Body, My Choice,
It's the COVID zone. It's up here.
infanticidal sociopaths vote for consistently year over year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, a government employee and Democrat are, I mean, seemingly have become synonymous. Recent years. I mean, that is their most loyal.
Yes.
Their most loyal base. Their most loyal voting base and donor base are government employees. I mean, the only thing that,
and that's one of the best arguments to be made for the abolition of all public sector unions.
Yeah. Well, yes, I agree with the unions. I mean, to get more democratic, I mean, you might have to go look for like the American Trial Lawyers Guild, okay, as far as like levels of 99% partisanship. But yeah, like it's an existential threat. They're panicking, okay.
Or the Screen Actors Guild.
Their entire life involves collecting, fat government paychecks, doing a minimum amount of work, and just attending meetings after meeting after meeting. Okay.
Yeah, Ray Stantz said it best. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
Exactly.
Right. God, they don't make movies like they used to.
No, they don't.
Anyway, yeah, it's an attack against the very way of life for the Democrat Party, and for their core constituents are the government employees, particularly government employees who have public unions. All right. So,
well, there's the whole chilling effect too. That's very deliberate. Once the first few hundred people get fired, the ones that are left that are not retarded are going to go, maybe I should try a little harder. Like, you don't actually have to.
They've got till the middle of February to take the deal. If 100% of the people who were eligible to take the deal took the deal, I would be totally comfortable with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's the attitude, it's the mentality. Yeah. Like when you have a restaurant full of bad apples, you really only have to fire one or two of them, and the rest of them are going to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like it's,
I mean, CBO and OMB are projecting that between 5 and 10% of people eligible to take the deal. That's to take 8 months of pay as a severance to go ahead and resign from their government job. That's the deal. They're expecting 5 to 10% to take that deal. Buddy, 50%, 60, 80. I take it. I hope they all take it.
Well, Elon proved that you don't actually need all the people that you think that you need.
Correct.
Like, Twitter still works. Twitter still works great, even though, like, he went in there with a chainsaw. Well, he went in there with a kitchen sink, but because he's master troll. But
yeah, the only organization that would not benefit from a massive force reduction is the military itself, and that's primarily because a part of war fighting is simply putting bodies in front of bullets. But apart from making mission on recruiting, there is no government agency that should not be reduced by the absolute maximum available.
Oh, the Army could be reduced, okay, and it would actually be healthy for the Army for there to be a force reduction, but not in the combat arms lane, okay. Like, we need all the brigades, all right. We need all those, heavy combat.
Yeah, job one, hurt people, break things.
Well, and to be clear, there's a big difference between there are people that should be removed from the organization because they're bad members, and that the organization should be reduced generally. I will absolutely say that there are a shitload of people that need to be removed from the military. For example, we talked about the EO on transgender military members yesterday. So yeah, there's plenty of people that are just not fit to serve. But as far as a numeric force reduction, that's a different question.
You guys talked about the infantrennies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although we didn't use that word, and I'm kicking myself for missing that obvious pun. God, I can't believe that escaped me.
So, Chris, you had a curated list of.
Clip.
Yes, please clip us.
This one's a little more positive, sort of.
I feel like this is the same one.
It's sort of the same one. I see what happened.
Okay, here we go.
I was on the next clip, but I forgot to change which screen I was sharing.
Americans by and large, do not like the Affordable Care Act. People are on it. They don't like Medicaid. They like Medicare. And they like private insurance. We need to listen to what they would prefer to be on private insurance. Most Americans, if they can afford to be, will be on private insurance. We need to.
And, that's something we've talked about many times on the show before, that with the introduction of the Affordable Care Act, insurance has become anything but. I want you guys to try and think back, try and remember what your health insurance plans looked like before the Affordable Care Act came into place. Most of you have deductibles now somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,500. Guys, when I first got into the insurance business, back when I was running a brokerage, hell, and even the short stint that I did in insurance before I enlisted in the Army. So that we're talking more than 20 years ago. A $6,500 deductible was unheard of. I couldn't write a health insurance policy in 2003, 2004, 2005. I could not write a health insurance policy back then with a $6,500 deductible. They didn't exist. In fact, it was essentially considered that if you wrote one with a deductible that high, what you were doing was you were defrauding the customer, because what they had didn't actually qualify as insurance.
So even if I opted for a maxed out Cadillac plan, it wouldn't have reached 6,500 deductible. If I checked I want every benefit, check every box, not 6,500.
Oh no, it's Mario's not an insurance guy. A maxed out Cadillac plan is going to have the lowest available deductible.
Yeah, high premium, low deductible, maximum coverage.
That's going to be your super Cadillac. But since you mentioned the super Cadillac plans, a high end, high premium, low deductible plan 20 years ago would have been a $500, $1,000 deductible. And the lower premium, higher deductible plan, you'd be looking at maybe a $3,500 deductible. If you bought your insurance through a shady provider, you might be able to get up to a $4,500 deductible. But even those were very rare back then.
The highest I ever saw when I was in insurance was $3,000 for a family. Right. For a family, and that was high. $1,500 for an individual, $3,000 for a family, and that was high.
Sorry to be rude, guys, but my time is up, so I'm going to leave you two to nerd out about insurance. That's not my round. All right.
Well, I'm sure we got a couple of more clips we can get through. Thanks for coming in and Catholicizing us.
Catholicated.
I have been properly Catholic.
It's like being caffeinated, but involuntarily. Okay, which ones in particular? We got to hit Senator Warren and Senator
Onesie.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's do the onesie one, because it gives us an excuse to see Megyn Kelly in the background, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a good enough reason. And
okay.
And let's be clear: the onesies that
you
go ahead, say what you're going to say real quick.
And let's be clear: the onesies that Bernie is referring to, they are anti-vax onesies. Like,
yeah.
They are. Well, let's be clear. But here we go. This will be fun.
You have started a group called the Children's Health Defense. You're the originator. Right now, as I understand it, on their website, they are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unvaxxed, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now you're coming before this committee.
Okay, let me clarify something real quick. One of the things that they're smearing Kennedy over is being an anti-vaxxer, right? They're trying to make you think that he's like one of these
Jenny McCarthy,
one of these Hollywood crystal healing magic lefty lunatics that are throwing chickenpox parties and the like, and just completely against all vaccines are the devil, et cetera, et cetera. And now he is a vaccine skeptic broadly in a lot of cases, but he is pro-vaccine generally, and he's being smeared as a total anti-vaxxer because he was one of the first people to start talking about specifically the COVID vaccine, which, as you guys know, as many of you know at least, we were so right on this one that we got thrown off of YouTube for a week before almost anybody. And we weren't even asking the question whether or not the vaccine was effective. We were asking the question that is the COVID vaccine, which is a novel piece of technology, right? It's an mRNA vaccine. It is not a live culture vaccine. It is technically distinct from what we have called vaccines since the invention of the vaccine. It is a new thing which is not similar in function technically to what a vaccine is. The only similarity it has is the theoretical intended outcome, which is to immunize you against a disease. But since it didn't even do that, right, it's unreasonable to even call it a vaccine. So the Children's Defense Fund he's talking about, this is part of Kennedy suing pharmaceutical companies over specifically COVID vaccine related injuries and complications, right? And more often than not today, because the left has shifted to go so hard pro COVID vax, you don't see groups of like 100% anti-vax activities as much anymore. The lefties are all on board for the vax, and that necessarily politically had to include all vaccines. And the chickenpox parties have largely gone by the wayside because, don't forget, this was a function of the hippy dippy lefty crystal healing goobers like the Green Party, right? So they're trying to conflate skepticism of a vaccine that has shown lots of complications, lots of injuries, was rushed, and there are a lot of problems with COVID vaccine. And people being concerned about that is not unreasonable. They need to make it seem like it is the same as saying the polio vaccine is no good. To say that they need you to think that saying the COVID vaccine is dubious to be equated with and conflated with saying I wouldn't let my kids have the polio vaccine, which is not the case. It is a fucking lie. And Bernie Sanders is about to sit here and tell that lie over and over and over again.
And you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines.
See? Fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Okay, I know the shirt is not entirely clear. No vax, no problem. Except, oh, wait a minute. Let's take a look at that image. It's branded. It's branded with the logo of the organization, which is an organization that specializes in suing pharmaceutical companies over COVID vaccine-related problems. Context does matter, right? And I'll grant Bernie, they set themselves up to have the context stripped and have themselves abused in the narrative. But that they set themselves up for that abuse does not change the fact that what Bernie Sanders is doing here is intentionally lying to you by twisting that commentary out of its actual context,
which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with
Are you
leadership.
supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am.
See, and we don't need to play any more of that clip. I mean, you can see Bernie Sanders is a sociopath.
I'm sad because none of those angles included Megyn Kelly laughing behind him. That's the only thing I was waiting on here. I just look, shameless. Yes, I want to look at Megyn Kelly. Who doesn't? Have you seen her?
Right, fair enough. Let's do. Okay, we're well way over. Let's do one more. Let's do one more to the positive. This one's kind of fun. We didn't get to Senator Warren, and you know what? Frankly, God, that bitch is crazy.
Look,
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
Go ahead.
Look, and I just wanted to add from not the Bernie clip, but the one before it. The fact that RFK is willing to admit that most Americans don't like the ACA. I mean,
right.
That all by itself, it goes back to that attitude thing that we talked about. That all by itself is a problem because now somebody's going to be in charge that understands, actually some of the shit we do isn't popular and they don't want that. And I know the one you're about to play. This is also a pretty good clip.
It is.
That is a pejorative.
Wait. Are you a conspiracy theorist?
That is a pejorative, Senator, that's applied to me, mainly to keep me from asking difficult questions of powerful interests. I was told that I was a conspiracy theorist. That label was applied to me because I said that the COVID vaccine, didn't prevent transmission and it wouldn't prevent infection, when the government was telling people, Americans, that it would. I was saying that because I was looking at the monkey studies in May of 2020. I was called a conspiracy. Now everybody admits it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said red dye caused cancer. And now FDA has acknowledged that and banned it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said fluoride lowered IQ. Last week, JAMA published a meta-review of 87 studies saying that there's a direct inverse correlation between IQ loss.
All right. So I'm going to assume
I could go on for about a week.
Is there any?
So, we've said it before and we'll say it again. Since 2020, the tinfoil hat crowd has been 100 for nothing. I mean, it turns out you're right about everything. We did a whole show where we talked about this a few months ago. It was like, 20 years ago, if you had questions about the Kennedy assassination, if you thought MK Ultra was a thing that happened, if you were concerned about U.S. government misinformation related to Pearl Harbor or the Gulf of Tonkin incident, if you thought basically anything short of all the politicians are actually lizard people, turns out that the jury may still be out on the lizard people question, but everything else was legit. MK Ultra happened, right? atrazine turned out to be a thing. Alex Jones turned out to be right about the atrazine thing. Maybe a little hyperbolic, maybe a little overblown, but in fact, the frogs were spontaneously changing sex as a result of the atropine in the water, or atrazine in the water. Which, by the way, been a whole pandemic of social contagion that could easily be related to that. And Kennedy being concerned about what's in the water, about the effect of fluoride on people. That's another one. Just a few years ago, the idea that fluoride in the water was somehow bad for you, that had anything other than absolutely beneficial effects for the strength and health of your teeth, to think anything other than only an idiot would not put fluoride in the water was crazy conspiracy land stuff. And like he said, we now have a new composite study of 86, or a new composite meta study of 86 problems that show that fluoride, it may be that there's too much in the water. It may be that it never should have been there to begin with, right? Hey, when you go to the dentist and he cleans your teeth, he tells you to spit that shit out, right? But he's being smeared as conspiracy theorist, and let's be real. As of 2020, if you had any doubts, they were pretty much resolved when Epstein didn't kill himself, and the lab leak was confirmed, right? Between the lab leak and Epstein, conspiracy theory has become the majority opinion. And it turns out that they're right about everything. And that's why it's become a popular opinion, a popular position.
Yeah, no,
did I overrun you?
Well, nope, that's quite all right. I don't know that I have much to add to that, because like so many other people, one of the things that really broke my brain was Epstein not killing himself. It recontextualized everything I've ever thought about, everything I've ever been told about, not just my government, but all governments and all big businesses. I am now of the belief that any corporation or entity or nonprofit or whatever, including like churches, once a thing reaches a certain size, there is at least some corruption that is just part of it being the size that it is unavoidable. And I'm not saying we should get rid of big institutions, but I am saying from this point forward, for the rest of my life, I will tell my children and I will tell my grandchildren, oh no, that thing has more than 500 members. Be careful before you get into bed with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean Stryker, prison cameras ain't what they used to be. So
yeah, we went from orange is the new black to pedos are the new pinata.
Yeah, so
I'd be totally comfortable with if we could question them about their clientele.
And look, and one of the things that he said there is, he was so specific. And so, look, I started asking these questions in May of 2020 because I was looking at the monkey studies. Let's just assume that the COVID vaccine is extremely dangerous. But let's also assume that it worked as intended and actually stopped you from getting COVID, stopped you from transmitting COVID. And let's not even say that it was perfect. Let's just say that it worked 90% of the time.
Yeah.
That's a bargain that many people would have chosen to make. There's all sorts of medical procedures that are inherently dangerous and can hurt you. Hell, surgery can save your life, but surgery means we're going to cut your body open and manipulate it. So surgery, in fact, does harm, but your net positive from surgery outweighs the harm that it does. chemotherapy is called chemotherapy because we pump your body full of chemicals, as in poison, literal poison. And we're trying to introduce just enough poison in your body to make the cancer killable without killing the rest of you. Medicine is full of these things called, and I believe the term is controlled toxicity.
Yeah.
But the problem, the baseline problem that he was called a conspiracy theorist for was that he was pointing out, like, hey, guys, this doesn't look like it's going to stop the spread of COVID. If the vaccine had stopped the spread of COVID, if the vaccine had even slowed the spread of COVID, we'd be having an entirely different conversation right now. But every single person that questioned it was called a conspiracy theorist, and it was a pejorative. It's not anymore, but that's what happens when you get caught in a lie.
No, it is. It is still a pejorative when it's used. You and I don't call people conspiracy theorists, right? We call them journalists. And the people who are generally called journalists are propagandists. There really are no conspiracy theorists anymore. We've proved too many of them. We've basically run out of conspiracies to theorize on. So when somebody calls you a conspiracy theorist, what they're trying to do is to associate you with somebody that believes they might as well be calling you a flat earther.
Yeah, they're using rules for radicals tactics on you. They're trying to shame you into shutting up. It is baseline narcissistic tactics where they deliberately flip your emotional responses around so you will choose to stop doing the thing that you would naturally be inclined to do because it makes the narcissist feel shame. And obviously
it's the fat girlfriend that's going to be mad at you for telling her not to eat the piece of chocolate that she told you not to let her eat. But she's also going to be mad at you because you let her do it. Right? You're wrong either way. You can't be right. She's determined that already. Everything is your fault. Well, I shouldn't have eaten that piece of chocolate. Why'd you let me do that? Why? Because we're getting a divorce. That's why, you psychotic bitch.
It's not quite 9:00 yet. You want to pull up one more and go for it, or are you done?
Oh no, I think it's time to wrap it up. For reasons that I'm sure you can
see. That's why I brought a whole pot in here, brother. Look, you've got the studio. Just put a coffee pot out there. Bite the bullet,
Cameron. The problem is not that I'm out of coffee. The problem is that I'm out of coffee. I need to pee. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and there we go.
Yeah.